But after the halving, it's going to drop to 450 Bitcoin. And as Mr. M said, if I were to go to a store and want to transact with gold, I can't physically chop the gold into pieces.
Okay, give me 1 sec. It's not going to work.
It's not possible.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show today in the studio, Crypto Kid.
Yeah, what's up, man? Thank you so much for having me on. We did the first podcast a couple of weeks back or months ago, actually, right?
I think it's been a couple of months, yeah.
That's crazy. So now we wanted to make a second edition where we focus more so on Bitcoin. Because as we're recording this video, Bitcoin's at like $61,000, I think.
61,000, yeah.
That's unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
43% in February alone.
Mind-blowing.
Insane. Really insane.
Crazy stuff.
I mean, where do you think we are going now? Because technically speaking, March.
Yeah. See, the thing is, we're so close to the halving event. And, you know, when it comes to the halving, the supply of Bitcoin, the important thing, let's go into the reason why Bitcoin's been pumping. So, you know, if you've been in crypto and you follow us, you probably already know. But if not, there's a halving cycle. Every 4 years, there's a halving. And in this cycle, the mining rewards fall down by half. So if you don't know what that is basically how Bitcoin works is Bitcoin is revolutionary because there are miners all across the world that solve mathematical equations. So a miner solves mathematical equations. It's a graphics GPU, right? So the GPU, it solves encrypted data. And this allows the Bitcoin transactions to go from one block to another. So think of it as the GPU solving math, and this opens up the block. Therefore, the Bitcoin transaction can go through. Let's say hypothetically it's 20 blocks. So you have 20 different blocks that the transaction has to go through, and different miners break these blocks apart. And in exchange for this, the miners get a reward, and this is in Bitcoin. Now, this allows the decentralization of Bitcoin because hundreds of thousands of miners across the world perform this task, and there's no one central authority that controls this process. Therefore, Bitcoin is fully decentralized, and this process only takes about 10 minutes, and it costs less than $1. Whereas if I were to go to the Apple Store to purchase an iPhone and I want to pay with my Visa card, the moment I process the transaction with my Visa card, the transaction is going to take 1 to 3 business days to settle, sometimes even more. And on top of this, I need to pay a 1.5 to 3.5% fee to the point of sale machine. Now, of course, this is bad for the merchant, and the amount of days it takes for this transaction to process slows down the economy.
And it's very much centralized, right?
Exactly.
I think I was reading an article the other day that said that even if it was possible to control 51% of the network, meaning control Bitcoin, the cost of the operational amount of computing power to get the 51% of the network will be far beyond
I think
the
it was
value.
like $40-50 billion.
It's just a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
So it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And also it will take a humongous amount of time and power. So.
It's interesting, like the topic of how can quantum computers get to that level? Like if we did control 51 or somebody did control 51%, at that point, what happens is interesting.
That's a good question. But then my point would be Bitcoin is the most secure network on the planet.
Yes, correct.
So if you can crack that one, what happens to everything else? Like if someone would be able to have a machine who's going to be able to solve or crack the network, well, they'll be able to do,
all sorts
banks.
of things.
I mean, your Facebook account, your whatever password you put somewhere. So if they manage to get into Bitcoin, it means everything else.
Makes sense.
So it's one of those things where it's like, if someone would come up with a solution to quantum computing, I would worry. The last worry I'll have will be, oh, my Bitcoin seed phrase has been cracked. It will be like, possible
to
nuclear,
all sorts of
missiles, whatever. It's very bad.
Scary. It's scary. So I think, that's a very valid point. Like my only fear with Bitcoin is that specifically if somebody took 51% of the mining power, and number 2 is Satoshi's 1 million Bitcoins. Those are the only 2 things, because we're 2 crypto people, we always talk about the positives for Bitcoin and crypto. But I think this is the first time where I share what my fears with Bitcoin are. And this is number 1, that around 1 million Bitcoin are with Satoshi. And Satoshi, by the way, is now, I think he has $62 billion, his net worth. He's on the Forbes billionaires list again. So Satoshi's 1 million Bitcoin. And number 2, what if somebody controls 51% of the mining?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know. Again, I mean, I'm speculating. I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate to your valid points, by the way. I would probably say I don't think Satoshi Nakamoto was one person.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely. I mean, that's my speculation, of
the
course.
emails with Craig Wright are interesting because it shows that it's one individual, but of course we don't know.
It could be like, like they used to do the pyramid. So back in ancient Egypt, they used to build the tunnels by different architects. They didn't know each other.
Oh,
and
wow, I don't know.
In the end,
Damn.
they used to be put into the pyramid to die. So they couldn't say the secrets, right? So I think, I mean, I'm not saying Satoshi people have been murdered, but all I'm saying is most likely what I would have done I would have hired a bunch of different people without telling them, and I would have assigned each a piece
of the puzzle,
and then I would assemble it myself. That's how I see the Satoshi kind of operational kind of thing. But having said that, they would have been given for sure rewards of some sort, and those I think is 1.1 million, a little bit over a million. I think is not going to belong to one single person. It might be to a group of individuals, of which probably most have passed. Because if you think about it, I mean, Bitcoin is, it's not 2 months old. I mean, it's not 50 years old either, but most of the people that used to work on those cryptography and everything, they already had some age. So I don't think anyone is going to come up and say, because everyone knows the Genesis wallet.
Yeah.
So if that wallet wakes up,
then
we
it's
know
scary.
Immediately, right? That's a beautiful thing about the blockchain. Everything is transparent.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's two concerns that mainstream media always highlight. Number one is that Bitcoin it's fully private, so it's not possible to track transactions. And number two is the environmental issue. But what people realize, or the governments around the world realize, is that Bitcoin is actually not fully private. It's pseudo-anonymous. So it is possible to track transactions, and there's a lot of companies doing that. And number two is Bitcoin doesn't hurt the environment, because Bitcoin actually turns out, to recent studies, it's on Forbes, that Bitcoin takes out methane from the air, which composes 10% of the greenhouse gases in the world. And methane is 42 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And Bitcoin mining can solve this. And additionally, if you compare Bitcoin to the centralized banking system, well, think about all the electricity used to power banks, ATMs, people commuting to work. If you compare that with Bitcoin mining, it's far, far, far greater. So I think this is something that mainstream media fails to highlight, but Bitcoin is a lot better in terms of, number one, sustainability, and number two, because of the almost instant transaction times, you're actually increasing the GDP of countries. Because how is economic growth measured? There's different formulae, but one of the most important ones is money supply multiplied by velocity of transactions. So if you increase the speed of transactions, then you're increasing economic growth, which is why governments will be incentivized to use Bitcoin like they do in many hyperinflationary countries. So Mr. M, we saw this week that over 30 countries around the world had hit all-time highs for Bitcoin. What do you think about that?
I think it's awesome. And by the way, to add on what you said, which was beautiful, I also would like to point out that most of the electricity has been wasted, not just by humans. Like, for example, sometimes I don't know, turn the light on the bathroom, go and watch TV. Forgot my light was on, go back, turn it off. Maybe I do operations like this, or maybe I have multiple rooms, or maybe Christmas. Let's think about how much electricity is wasted in holidays, right? Celebrations. Exactly. So again, nothing is really wasted. People are using it. But interesting fact is, majority of the power we think is used is not. And even when we produce, the power producers and the electricity providers are actually going to waste most of it. What's happening with Bitcoin is transforming electricity into value. So even if we need a lot of energy, which could be a volcano in El Salvador, for example, or gas, they technically have gone to waste. We make them into money. So we transform the energy into a valuable currency. So I would also argue that, saying, when people saying, Bitcoin is wasting energy, they don't understand it's transforming energy.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And, as you said, there's a lot of wasted energy around the world. In physics, they use Sankey diagrams to measure the efficiency of a product and how much energy it uses for the positive and what is wasted, right? And Bitcoin could pick up that wasted energy and turn it into monetary value, which is something that's not been done before. And on top of this, right, you mentioned we can use volcanoes and gas to support Bitcoin mining. The thing is, right, this goes into a theory of free energy and that there's energy everywhere, and even the smallest atom that you can't see, but with a microscope, right, the smallest atom, once it collides with another one, you can generate energy that can fuel up entire cities. So if we go down to that concept, then it's interesting too. But, Bitcoin is also a code. This is what people don't see. We're going to be able to develop products with Bitcoin that we don't know right now and we can't imagine. Think of electricity. When Nikola Tesla generated DC to AC power, everybody called electricity a fad because you needed huge cables to power the smallest thing, and it was incredibly inefficient. But because you can innovate and there was drive for innovation, once alternating current was invented, electricity began powering the mobile phone. That back then, if we said, hold on, electricity is going to cause this to happen, we would have said, what? Or the people back then would have said, what? So the same thing applies to Bitcoin, maybe not on the same scale, but because Bitcoin is code, it can actually evolve into different products.
That's a really good point. People are going to build on top of each other. It's like with the internet. If you think about it, internet was built with a bunch of protocols, HTTP, FTP, IRC. And on top of those protocols, people have built things. Yeah. But it wasn't possible to figure out what it was back then because we didn't know what it was capable of. Mm-hmm. And going back to your point about all-time high, it's interesting how, of course, the dollar is the world currency reserve. So we cannot measure everything in dollars most of the time. But if you go back and, like you said, 30 other currencies have been surpassed by Bitcoin. And by the way, in terms of fiat market cap, Bitcoin has passed the Russian ruble yesterday.
Yeah, it's crazy, yeah.
So crazy. So now it's the 14th largest currency on the world. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, you put it in perspective, it's like, okay, the dollar is keeping up because it's the world reserve, but there are many other currencies, they have a bad inflation. Mm-hmm. So if you are in some countries, by the way, BlackRock today launched ETF in Brazil.
In Brazil, yeah,
So this is getting interesting because people, they have a really bad inflation. They now have a way to escape that fiat.
Dude, let me tell you, in Turkey, where I'm from, basically, the Turkish lira devalues by the day. And what people there, so how can people save themselves against this devaluing currency is by either putting their money into gold, silver, or now Bitcoin, because their salaries don't increase by the day, right? So that they're not going to get higher increments or raises into their salary as the currency devalues. It's just not sustainable. So they either need to convert their money into dollars to hedge or buy gold, silver, or Bitcoin. Now, the issue with buying dollars is in hyperinflationary countries, the central bank doesn't actually have a lot of dollars or, the reserve currency that's valid during that time. So if I were to go to the exchange currency or let's say the bank and want to exchange 100,000 Turkish lira into dollars, they'll either ask you a lot of questions and then eventually after a lot of time give it to you with a bad rate, or you don't get it at all. So the issue is then if I can't exchange my currency into another one, then I need to buy gold or silver. And if you buy gold or silver, then you have more hassle, more problems that arise. For example, if you buy gold, then you're going to have to store it somewhere. So you need to invest in, let's say, protection across your house and security cameras and safe and etc. And you'll always have the thought in the back of your mind, what if someone breaks in and steals this gold? It's also not convenient. It's not easy to move. And what if you want to move houses? There's too much that goes into it. So if you don't want to store it at your home, then you want to store it in a bank, right? And once you put your gold in the bank, then you're going to pay for insurance, and then you're going to have to trust the bank so that they keep it and they don't use it for other things. So it's the same goes for silver even more because you'll need larger quantities of silver, which is heavy and takes up space. And therefore, Bitcoin becomes the easiest option because Bitcoin you can take anywhere with you around the world. You can have hundreds of millions of dollars of it and it won't matter. You can just keep it on a wallet on your phone or a small Trezor or ledger or whatever you use. And the costs of storing it are almost zero. You just need to pay for the wallet itself, which can cost $20 or $200 depending on which one you want to buy. And that's why people in Turkey, they've chosen to invest in Bitcoin and keep their money in Bitcoin. It's very easy to buy Bitcoin in Turkey. You can immediately link your bank account to an exchange and boom, it's super simple. And they've hedged against it perfectly and now they're in profits.
That's such a good point. It reminds me, at some point when I was in London, I actually had gold. I don't know if I ever told you the story, but I was like, hey, I actually like gold. That's the thing. I like gold. I don't dislike gold. And I think there is space for both in your portfolio. But when I had to decide, I mean, now I have no gold, so for example, and ever since I bought it and I sold it, has gone up. I think it was $1,400.
Wow, now it's like 2,000 something, yeah.
But exactly like you described. So what I've done some research in the UK. I found a company. I went to see them. I've seen the cover, everything great. And I said, okay, I would like to purchase some gold. I purchased some and they said, okay, here's your unit. We're going to close it. We're going to lock it and see you. And I'm like...
So now I have to trust you.
Exactly. I mean, that thing they show me as a number.
Yeah.
1937, whatever. You can go next and they say, oh, your number is 1937 and this is your thing and whatever. Without mentioning the fact that in the past has been confiscated. Gold is being confiscated. Gold was illegal to hold by Americans and they've been paid back with, guess what, the dollar. So again, it's not in your hands. If you keep it in your hands, like you said, you have the risk. And then what if you want to move country? For example, I moved from London to Dubai. I mean, I can't just jump on a plane with 2 bags full of gold and go to the custom. They're going to say, hey, what are you doing? You have to declare it. I mean, such a hassle. And then, okay, you have this thing, a kilo of gold worth $50,000. And how do you break it? Like, you can't just go down to the store and say, I would like to buy some groceries. Can you just...
Exactly. You can't fractionalize it. In Bitcoin, you can infinitely fractionalize.
Satoshis. Yeah.
Satoshis, like, and also before we jump into that, because then we're going to go into Bitcoin and why it's better, and we'll go into the different points. But gold, for example, you need to make sure that that gold is 100% pure gold, right? So that's a hassle in itself. It needs to go to the lab. It needs to get tested. And then on top of that, there's a huge black market for gold. So if you go to one broker and another one, there's going to be huge arbitrage. So the market isn't as liquid and as transparent as Bitcoin is. And if we go back into Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, it's probably one of the most liquid assets in the world. It's in fact, after the 2024 cycle, halving cycle, it's going to become the hardest asset on the planet, meaning the new inflation that goes into Bitcoin via Bitcoin mining is going to be less than what goes into gold. So there's new gold mined every day. That's greater than new mined Bitcoin every day, which today it sits at 900 Bitcoin. But after the halving, it's going to drop to 450 Bitcoin. And as Mr. M said, if I were to go to a store and want to transact with gold, I can't physically chop the gold into pieces.
Okay, give me 1 sec. It's not going to work.
It's not possible. And with Bitcoin, you can fractionalize it infinitely, right? You can buy $0.000001 worth of Bitcoin. And you may ask, okay, why is this important? Well, if you go into third world countries, right, for transactions to take place or for people to receive lower amounts of money if they're working at a job that earns them less, then you do need to go into those lower fractions. And Bitcoin enables this. And on top of that, 1.4 billion people in the world are unbanked, and it's a $380 billion market. And the reason why a lot of people are unbanked is because either where they live, there simply isn't an available bank, or they don't have the right documents, credentials, or they're not allowed. And with Bitcoin, anyone in the world with like a cheap $20 phone, you can have your own Bitcoin wallet address and transact between each other with just a satellite. So, I mean, Bitcoin provides banking to the unbanked. It gives people financial freedom. It's unconfiscatable, meaning that your money is actually yours and you can verify that. Because, for example, gold, I don't know the exact ratio, but the leveraged gold to the real gold in the world, there's a big difference.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe they'll find a mine tomorrow.
Exactly. Maybe an asteroid found.
Maybe they'll mine from space, or they'll find a way to do it.
Or there's a new material, for example. You never know.
Exactly. So that's such a super valid point. Also because I feel, from my perspective, it's like if you are bullish with technology, you cannot be bearish on Bitcoin. Because think about everything else. Think about, we discussed it a couple of times. If you wanted to watch a movie, back in my days, there was something called Blockbuster, right? Which was a chain of shops where you have to physically go in, get the VHS, take it home, rewind it because people are mean, play the movie, rewind it because I'm nice, and then physically walk back to the store and drop it, right? Then you have to put a custody because what if you don't go back to the VHS? The VHS is ruining over time, and some were damaged, and you made all your way back to your house. You're ready with the popcorn. You put the VHS, and you go blah 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 blah. And the movie is ruined. It's like, damn it, go back to the store. The whole thing is ruined. Now, digital has solved some of the problems, and also created new problems because, of course, opportunities, if you wish. But it's the same thing with the internet, right? I remember when I was looking into internet in the early 90s, companies that were so against it, they were not getting it. It's like, why do I need an email? I have the post office. And I'm like, yeah, but email is faster. No, I don't need that. I need to connect into the internet. It takes forever. I don't have the modem. I don't have time to dial in. I'm not interested. Now, 20 years later, we've taken away all the painful steps for you to be in or connected. So now it becomes easier. I think with blockchain, we are now at the phase where people, they get it. Hence why it's a fantastic opportunity because a small percentage of people are in. Hence why you can make money. Because at some point when it's going to be propagated, it's going to be too late.
Bro, yesterday I was at a TradeFi conference and, I was talking to them and I was like one of two guys that was in the Bitcoin space. They're all like, traders or investment bankers or whatever. And there's two big issues that Bitcoin solves. Number one, well, actually a couple. We've already discussed infinite fractionalization and banking the unbanked and financial freedom. But there's a couple more. So blockchain, if we move away from Bitcoin and focus on blockchain technology, it really does revolutionize everyday finance. And people fail to see this. And that's why the small amount of people that do can make money right now. But see, if you look at traditional stocks and how stocks are traded, there's actually a T+3 settlement. So let's say you are the S&P 500, or let's say you're BlackRock, okay?
And I like that.
Okay, you're BlackRock.
I'm not a Bitcoin at the moment.
Yeah, 10 billion's worth. But let's say I wanted to buy some Tesla shares from you because I have an account with you. You're my asset manager. I bought some Tesla shares. Now you give me my Tesla shares immediately, right? But you need to buy or compensate that with your risk management with I don't remember exactly where it's traded on, but let's say it's on the NASDAQ, right? So you go to the NASDAQ and you request, let's say 1,000 shares, you ask for 1,000 shares back. So you give me my shares immediately, right? Which of course I actually don't really own because it's on an exchange, right? And there's so many different stuff to it. But let's say you gave me my shares, I have 1,000 shares, and you are requesting NASDAQ for the same amount. This transaction takes 3 days after its first process to be settled because your guys check it, they verify it, and then NASDAQ checks it and verifies it, and then you two communicate, and then after 3 days, it settles. This is so inconvenient. The same thing goes for SWIFT, the international money transferring. And that's why, like when I send money internationally with a bank account, for example, there's so many problems that appear because you would think it's all digital and it's all, fully autonomous, but no, sir. It's still a bunch of guys checking it and then verifying it, and then your transactions get processed. Therefore, there's sometimes the transactions don't go through, you lose money, you pay more fees, etc. But what blockchain does is, because everything is public, everything is processed and publicly available on the public ledger, and miners are verified, and it gets rid of double spend. It's all fully authentic, and it just gets processed within 10 minutes, right? Depending on what blockchain you use. Bitcoin is 10 minutes. Ethereum can be faster depending on gas fees, but something like Matic, for example, takes a couple of seconds.
It's instant, yeah. It's crazy. And like you said, it's transparent.
Yeah.
I mean, when people are pointing fingers and saying, "Oh, it's used by criminals," I love that argument because, to be honest, dollars covers the most part of criminal. If you are a dodgy individual, you do not want to use the blockchain because you're not going to use a transparent network to do some dodgy stuff. Exactly. You might want to use the dollar, which is technically untraceable, right? But anyway, besides that, all the same problems people are finding with the blockchain specifically, or in Bitcoin if you wish, is the same problem that people are finding with new technologies.
With the internet as well, right?
Exactly. Every time when cars were introduced, Carl was telling us the other day that there used to be a guy with a flag in front of the car saying, "Hey, careful, there is a car." I mean, this defeats the purpose of the car. Now they drive themselves with Tesla. So again, going against technology. Electricity, you made a good point earlier. I'm sure you've seen the posters in the internet, people saying, oh, it's black magic, fad. It's killing people. You have the posters with lightning bolt striking on people.
People focus on the negative, and you know why? Because there's a lot of old people in the world who are, when they're comfortable with a system, they don't want to change. And that's what the trade guys were saying. Okay, if we were to shift a system that is multiple decades old, clearly works, right? And if we switch that onto the blockchain, number one, it's going to take many years, which, by the way, I've heard in secret, JP Morgan, BlackRock, they're developing systems for it. Because imagine instead of 3 days, it settles in 10 minutes. It's all publicly available. And this increases speed of transactions, reduces workforce. But the issue is, right, it's a system that so many people know how to use. And old people like Gen X and baby boomers, they're not used to tech. They're not used to innovation. They're not used to change. So I think with Gen Z rising and growing up, I think the adaptability to new technology is increasing with AI, especially, and how it's growing exponentially. Therefore, I think people will be used to using new technology much faster. And that's why I think blockchain and Bitcoin is going to be something that is going to be used every day in the very near future.
I get it. Such a great point. And you know, to give you an example, which is going to make you laugh, but to edit my podcast and our videos, I use Final Cut Pro. And the other day, a friend said, "Oh, use DaVinci Resolve. It's much better for so and so and so." And I was like,
"It's not, by the way."
Spoiler alert!
It's not.
And I was like, you know what? I don't care because I don't have time or capacity now to learn a new thing. I'm comfortable with my editing key and everything on the keyboard, shortcuts. I know my routine. I don't want to introduce a new software. I don't want to learn it. And they are fairly similar. So imagine you are someone who has 80 years old, 90 years old. He or she has done a lot of money with traditional finance. They have done their career. They've written books and they are wired in, you know. There is no way they are going to understand or wanting to understand crypto and Bitcoin with dogs attached to currencies. They will think it's crazy, it's going to zero, and it's blah, blah, blah.
Dude, it's psychology, right? The issue is, it's like if you make, so in trading, there's this trading psychology. If you make a lot of money by longing an asset, you're going to believe that longing is the only way to make money. It makes you a permeable. So we discussed this in the conference the other day. So let's say if you're a trader and you made so much money from shorting Bitcoin, you're going to want to keep shorting it because that's how you believe. You're wired in. And it's the same thing. Like if you're used to something so much, it works for you, you're going to refuse change. The only way that you will welcome change is if it gives you a direct benefit, most popularly a monetary benefit. Other than that, you will not want to change your working system because why would you?
Exactly. And that's why things take forever to change, because we need a generational movement coming from the younger generation saying, you know, it's like, I mean, I don't have any grandparents anymore, but I imagine my grandma using an iPhone, I mean, or FaceTiming people. She wouldn't even, I mean, bless her soul, she wouldn't even be able to comprehend it as much as maybe in 20, 50 years when I will be 80 years old, if I get there, hopefully. There's going to be people with goggles and I'm like, what, man?
That's happening now, dude. You don't need to wait 25 years.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's not as distributed as it could be or it will be. It's like maybe, I mean, funny thing is those new kind of Apple Pro, Vision Pro is expensive. It's same as the iPhone. The first version was expensive. You're going to have it cheaper. It's going to be more introduced. It's going to be other brands doing cheaper stuff. And it's going to become natural as much as nowadays we Zoom with people. But again, you know, it's going to be much harder for older people to understand the process. And I mean, imagine going back, rewind the clock 50 years, not even that long, 50, 80 years, and say to people, oh, one day there's going to be young guys on a phone making money selling products. What? Influencers? What?
Yeah, like 15-year-old makes money with crypto. What?
it's so far-fetched in their mind, they are not going to get it. So I do understand, hence why some people, I'm not going to name names, but you know who they are strongly against it. They don't even want to bother.
Bro, did you see Peter Schiff's tweets? I think in one he admitted that people are switching from gold to coin. I was like, what is this April Fool's Day already? What's going on here?
He kind of twisted it into the Bitcoin is the enemy of gold and friends of fiat.
Think about that old person that we're all referring to, right? That old baby boomer that doesn't want change and is so ideologically fixed onto one thing, arguing with someone that is famous because he bought Bitcoin at 67 cents. It's going to be funny.
Shout out to gold. I don't think it's a bad thing.
By the way, I think gold is, and Sammy Loyal, who you've had on the podcast before, he also mentioned that gold could go a lot higher. I think so too. But it's an opportunity cost. Do you want to go with Bitcoin that could provide you, is known to provide more returns? But of course, it can have more downside too, or gold. By the way, I was playing around with the Bloomberg terminal yesterday at this conference. And basically, the Bloomberg terminal, what's super cool about it is that it can backtest all sorts of indicators and oscillators and which one historically performed the best for Bitcoin or any other asset. And what I found is if you backtest it to any point in time, guess what was the most profitable strategy with Bitcoin?
Dollar cost average.
Buying and holding. That is it. If you just bought and hold Bitcoin, according to history, it's the most profitable thing to do.
Yeah, I completely agree. There is even a DCA calculator you can play online.
Dude, the power of compounding is so powerful and people don't see it.
And it's funny because it is the easiest thing and yet the most complicated thing to do.
Exactly.
Because it requires a couple of things that people generally never have, which is consistency and patience.
Oh, yeah.
If you think about content creation, for example, who is making it are people, they are consistently and they don't give up and they do it for a long period of time.
Exactly.
Same with Bitcoin. You buy every week, every month. For example, on YouTube as well, like all those big YouTubers, if you look into MrBeast and you go back to the first videos, but he's been there since the beginning, man.
Been there. And like the thing is, that's why I push young people to start what they want to start right now. Why? Because you can afford to DC into Bitcoin with all of your pocket money and you're not going to lose out on anything. You can stay consistent. You don't need money. If you have your parents, of course, they will provide financial support to you. If you start a business, you don't have the liability of taking care of kids or a family. So if you start young, you can build this discipline with a lot more ease. And hopefully these habits will stick with you going into the future because, let's say you are a working man or a working woman and you've invested money into Bitcoin and this investment has gone up by 40%. You're going to be tempted to sell because you can sell and you can probably use it for paying for your kids' school or buy a new car or something, right? Paying off a loan. But if you're a kid, you know what? It doesn't matter. It can stay. It doesn't matter because you can wait for 10, 20 years and you'll be 30 years old and then you'll check your balance and it's compounded over time and maybe you're even a billionaire. Depends on the value of the dollar, of course, by then.
That's a really good point. I was talking with Da Vinci about this not long ago and I said to him, okay, Bitcoin has been around since 2009. Ever since then, many people have been involved in Bitcoin. So many people like Da Vinci, for example, shout out to Da Vinci.
Yeah.
He's been involved in Bitcoin. He's been buying them. He's been selling them. He's been buying them. Mm-hmm. Now, how many people do you think ever since early days, 2010, 2011, even 2012, have kept them?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's on-chain data for this, and there are some crazy people that have not sold thousands of Bitcoin for 10 years. But I mean, think about it. Like Da Vinci is someone that has bought Bitcoin when it's at, or actually mined Bitcoin when it was at 67 cents, and then he's bought the top at like $300 and then it went back down to $20 or something.
Imagine buying $300 top.
The top, right?
The top.
And he's not sold. And it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of passion for something. And it takes a lot of belief that this asset that's just been around for 2-3 years back then, and the vision that in the future it's going to be the thing. So it takes a lot, and people don't have that patience. People don't have that vision to believe in something and wait for all those years. And congrats to Da Vinci for doing so.
The reason why I said that is because I do strongly believe that most of the money they have, most of the Bitcoin, for me Bitcoin is money, so that makes sense. Most of the Bitcoin they have not moved in 10 years, I think they are lost.
Yeah.
or someone has lost the keys or whatever, because there is a huge amount. Like we were looking the other day on the distribution of Bitcoin, right? There is like a huge chunk which is lost forever, they say. Maybe it's not lost, maybe it's just dormant. We don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they will wake up at some point, I'm not sure. But the point is, many people that I'm talking to on a daily basis, they are telling me two things. One, oh, I wish I knew. And I say to them, you wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't have bought it.
If you knew, like, let's say, because I remember Da Vinci telling me this, you know what a CAPTCHA is. So if when you do a CAPTCHA test, it proves that you're not a robot to the system and then you're let through. Back then, you could have just done the CAPTCHA where you select, okay, what is a red light? Okay, what is a bicycle? And then you would have gotten Bitcoin in return. And trust me, like as Mr. M said, you would not have bought it even if you saw it.
Exactly. So A, you wouldn't have bought it. And B, you wouldn't have kept it. Because if you imagine buying Bitcoin at $1, okay? And then this thing goes to $3,000. Bro, you are selling everything.
Oh yeah.
And Bowling say, whoa.
I'm selling at $2. I'm selling when I 2x my investment.
So, I mean, you might want to keep some of it, whatever, just for the fun of it. But that's why I think there is only a very small portion of people, either they had so much to begin with that they bought a ton and they go, okay, now I have so many, I can sell throughout those crazy prices. And then I started to realize, wait, it's been 5 years, wait, it's been 8 years, this thing is going up, maybe I should save some. But the amount of people patient and consistent enough to accumulate, it's going to be like, think about the Max Kaiser, for example. He has plenty. He was giving thousands of Bitcoins to everyone. Alex Jones, he offered him 10,000 Bitcoin for a couple of questions. So either you are someone who has so much and you go, well, I'll take some cold storage, whatever I forget, and the other some I'll sell it and make money. And then you get, like we were saying, you and me the other day, the more you are into the Bitcoin kind of mindset, the more you become a maxi. A, and B, the more you will understand that DCA and dollar cost averaging and holding it, it's important. But it will require pressure. Diamonds are made by pressuring, right? And some of the people I have in my network, in my life and everything, they've gone through studied, they hold it for years, they got scammed or they lost it, and they are like, now, you know what, I'm out. So it's super binary. Like you either sell everything or you are pissed about everything and you leave.
Yeah. Right now, I don't want to buy anything because I just want to buy more Bitcoin. And as you said, like imagine if you bought at $1, you're going to sell at $2. Let's be real, or $1.5. The only person or people that wouldn't have sold is if you already started off with a lot of money. Let's say you have $1 billion and you put $100,000 into Bitcoin when it was at $100, right? You don't need to sell it, so you won't sell it, right? And that's the only option. But if you're someone that, okay, you have $1 million and you invested even 10K into it, if this 10K became 100K, that's 10% of your net worth. So you may look into selling.
Exactly. So that's why I'm like, it's really interesting to see. And I think it's part of the Bitcoin invention itself to distribute through people. Because at the end of the day, like you said, imagine you are someone who invested, I mean, let's face it, if you rewind the clock when Da Vinci was making video in 2010 and he was begging people to buy $1 of Bitcoin. That was begging people, right? Imagine you would have, and by the way, $1
would have got you maybe Bitcoin. Yeah, one Bitcoin probably.
Exactly, probably. So now you go, okay, well, how much do I invest? Oh, I don't know. Let's
$2,000 in maybe.
Exactly, a couple of $1,000s.
Yeah.
Then, like you said, that thing goes from $1 to $10.
Wow, okay, now my $2,000 is $20,000. Okay.
Maybe you sell some and you leave some in there.
Yeah, you take your initial out and let's say you left $18K.
And you let it ball. Yeah. Then from that thing, it goes to $250 or $300.
Wow, now I can buy a house with this money. Maybe I should sell and buy a house instead.
And you sell another chunk.
Yeah.
And you keep a little bit.
Yeah.
Then we were talking about $200. We're like $60,000 now. So you see where I'm going with this. So at some point, you will have to consider the fact that you want to. And by the way, not even mentioning the huge amount of volatility.
Yeah.
So you would have gone, oh my God, 3,000. Oh my God, 300.
Bro, the emotional roller coaster is crazy, right?
So the whole thing has been forged to
shake out people
or forge like diamond hands. People say, you know what? For example, I told you multiple times, like the last cycle was brutal for me.
Yeah.
Brutal. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was a time when we crashed to $3,000 that I said, okay, that's it. I'm done. I made a massive, I mean, by the way, bear in mind, I was still in profit, major profit. But I was like, I made a massive mistake. I am an idiot. I should have sold. I should have done. I should have this.
Because it came from $20K down to $3,000.
Exactly.
Right?
And I didn't sell a single Satoshi, by the way, through to this day.
You're amazing, man.
I mean, I'm not sure. I think I could have played much better.
But look, I mean,
in retrospective,
Bitcoin teaches you so many things. It teaches you patience. It teaches you
humility.
Conviction. Maybe it messes with your brain a little bit, but I think it forges this beautiful diamond, like you said.
That's why I love the phrase "stay humble and stack sats." I got to a point where I said, "Okay, that's it. I don't actually have." I remember, bro. I mean, I remember looking myself in the mirror and saying, "I am not buying any more of these." And it was at $3,000, right? And I was like, I made a mistake. I have no faith. I swear to you, I was there. I was in the dark, and I said, "This thing is going to nothing. I made a mistake. I lost a lot of money. I should have sold. Blah blah blah." But then I said, "Okay, I'm not selling it now, of course, because who cares? I mean, it can be worse." People were calling $1,000, if you remember.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing. Like, I have to be completely honest. When Bitcoin was at 15K, I was saying, "Oh, we're going to drop to $12,000." Of course, a lot less experience in the market, etc. But that's the thing. Greed is always, and we spoke about this a couple of days back, greed is always a lot harder to, or fear is actually a lot harder to manage than greed if you look at it. Yeah. So let's say the market sentiment is bad, right? And it's all looking terrible. If you have conviction, you can, you can still buy, but when it gets greedy, then you entered uncharted territories. However, as a trader or as a human yourself, right, we're psychological beings, and we have emotions. We're not computers. So when something goes down to $3,000, even if you believe in it 100%, you also start getting question marks. It's normal. And when everything is looking good, then you start getting euphoric, and then you start calling the $1 million predictions. It's how it works. Our psychology is easily impacted and easily influenced. So it's just important to, if you believe in something, it's like Amazon stock. This is a beautiful, beautiful analogy. So when Amazon just started, right, it was probably a few years into their startup. The business was doing very well. They were generating revenue. Everything looked like it was booming, but the market itself, the stock market itself, it wasn't doing the best. Therefore, the stock value of Amazon dropped a lot, but the business itself, it was performing, it was selling, everything looked good. Therefore, the founder, Jeff Bezos, he was like, okay, should I be worried here or should I not be worried? And then he looked at his business. He's like, okay, the business is making money. Sure, the stock fell 80%, but that doesn't reflect anything. And at that point, if you believe in the business, if you believe in its long-term performance, you would be buying Amazon stock, even if it's 80% down. And that's the same thing with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin crashed from 69 to 15K, did anything change about Bitcoin? No, it was the exact same product, with the exact same mission and roadmap ahead. Therefore, if you believe in something long-term, if you believe in its mission, if you believe in its path, then you won't look at price and you'll just buy.
Exactly, really well said. Hash rate goes up. Again, I think the old thing was designed to make it worthy. It's like the Thor hammer. You have to be worthy to wield it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same thing with Bitcoin. And I think so far, based on what I've seen, is going to create a very binary type of individual. Mm-hmm. Either someone which is 100% laser-eyed, focused, and Satoshi is everything, or someone who goes, "This is crazy, I'm out."
Yeah, there's no middle ground.
And there is no middle ground. And I think what is interesting is getting to a point which we are going to be eventually, where you have enough liquidity in your life to buy whatever you wish and have nice things around, and then keep your value, your wealth into Bitcoin, but you don't have the need of selling the asset. Exactly. There's even a meme with, I think it's Morpheus and Neo of Matrix, and they say, "Oh, are you telling me that at some point I'll be able to sell my Bitcoin for whatever?" And Morpheus says, "Neo, when the time will come, you wouldn't even have to sell it."
Because things will be valued against Bitcoin.
Exactly. Like, it's an asset.
Exactly.
Right? So
like
you can borrow against.
Even now, this is possible. Like, I've seen Da Vinci, he posted a video where you can actually borrow money against Bitcoin, and people that believe in debt creation and leveraging someone else's money instead of using their own, right? If you have Bitcoin, for example, Donald Trump right now, President Donald Trump, he has to pay a fine of like $400 million. He's not worried because he has so many property across the world where it's not mortgaged. So he could just easily borrow against his property and pay it off, right? So he doesn't need to use his own liquid assets to pay off the fine that he has to pay. And that's the same thing with what MicroStrategy does. Whenever Bitcoin goes higher, they borrow against their already existing Bitcoin, which is used as collateral for cash. And then
they buy more.
To buy more. Like, what is this crazy mindset?
I know. Crazy Michael Saylor is going to be one of the most
successful individuals in history, man.
Insane. He posted a video today where he was about to go on stage.
Uh-huh.
And
in Madeira, right?
In Madeira, you could see people chanting, Saylor. And he was backstage saying, yeah, I'm going to go and talk Bitcoin with some friends. It was super cool. But he's such a cool individual, man. And I think he has seen it. And I think once you go through a bottoms of fire, because you have to go through, I mean, let's face it, he had everybody against him. Like when we went to $15,000.
They were calling, MicroStrategy is going to get liquidated and
everything's going to go to nothing and it's going to lose everything and he's a crazy man. But look at now,
how the tables change.
Look at Bukele as well. President Bukele, when he said, we're going to buy Bitcoin, we're going to make a legal tender, we're going to mine it with the Volcano. This was like years ago. People thought he was insane.
Yeah.
And he tweeted the other day when he said, cry harder to Peter Schiff. That was a beautiful repost. But again, this is creating
Da Vinci. Like when he made his bet, right? He said, look, buy up to $10,000 was it that he promised he would pay them back?
Yeah.
10K, buy it, and if it goes wrong, I will cover your assets. Back. So it's basically like you can't lose in this deal. Only 10 people took him up to the bet, right?
Yeah.
And they bought Bitcoin, and eventually when it went up, I think they gifted him 100 Bitcoin. So it's insane. And he also mentioned in the conference we did the other day that there are people who made videos about him calling him out as a scammer. And I'm like, dude, do those videos still exist? And he's like, oh no. They took them down.
That's why, like, when you put everything together in retrospective, I think, and God knows how many other opportunities. I think each generation has one life-changing opportunities, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
For example, for me, it was the internet, but I was in my 20s. I didn't know what I was doing. I made a job out of it. I made a career. Mm-hmm. So I was able to leverage it somehow. But I'm talking about life-changing money opportunities. But like you said in the beginning, many people, they don't care. They are trapped in their sleepwalking, as I call it. They just go to work, they watch TV, and
because it's comfortable.
It's comfortable.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because being an entrepreneur, having your own business, being an investor, it comes with so many complications. It's not a straight path up. Like, of course, when people become successful, they only share the good things about themselves, right? They're not going to share the bad stuff that's going on. So people have this false impression, this false belief that, wow, okay, he must be living the life. But no, there's so many ups and downs that will make you want to quit. That's why only 20% of entrepreneurs make it to something, and 20% of that 20% become very successful. Because when you mess up and you mess up very badly and something goes wrong, then you're fully incentivized to give up. Like when Bitcoin dropped to $3,000, you were saying, I'm not going to buy any more of this. But if you remain consistent and learn that you are going to make mistakes, it's inevitable, and some mistakes are going to be so bad that it's going to be very painful to get back up. But if you don't get back up, that's when it ends.
That's the only mistake, I think, not getting back up, because everything else is a learning process. But like you said, I think it's implanted in some of the personality of the people, because there are many people I know very well, they wouldn't be comfortable in living one day of our lives. Because we are indeed entrepreneurs, and we investors, and we invest, we buy things. So, but then at the same time, they would like to have certain things. And I'm like, okay, well then, if you want to have money and be rich, you can't work as an employee, because they don't match. So you have to be able to take yourself out and create opportunities. Mm-hmm. I remember when I flew to Ireland the first time, I got people saying, oh, you were lucky. And I was like,
No.
I used to get really angry at them, and then I realized that I'm saying to them now, yeah, I actually am lucky.
They will never understand.
Because what you think you become and what you say you manifest. So yeah, I'm very lucky. But the funny thing is, in the beginning I was like, hey, what do you think? Nobody came to my house, knocked the door and gave me a ticket for Ireland. I created the opportunity, So instead of pointing fingers and say you are lucky, you should go back home and create your own luck. Create your own opportunity.
Dude, people tell me that, oh yeah, you grew up in Dubai, so that's why it's much easier for you. Yes, it's much easier for me, but my parents are visionaries because I didn't come to a Dubai that is now. We came to a Dubai that was 15 years ago. And in fact, we didn't even live in Dubai. We lived in Sharjah, which is much less developed than Dubai. So it's all about vision. And if, let's say, your parents make the right choice and then, you end up in a good place, then it's up to you to leverage it. There's so many kids in Dubai that don't make something out of their lives or leverage the opportunities as much as possible. So you can't point fingers and say lucky, because luck comes with a lot of hard work. I think luck is the disguise for that. And I believe that God likes people who work hard, so he opens doors for them. So I think that's what it is. And you can't cherry pick the good stuff, like you said. It's easy to do.
I'm sure you remember this. Randy Pausch, the last lecture, he said,
yeah,
luck is truly when preparation meets opportunity.
Yes. And by the way, watch the last lecture. It's very life-changing stuff. And I got so inspired by it.
I'm glad you liked it. It's one of my favorite things. He said so many good things. And like you said, okay, you might want to question the fact that some people are born in different countries. Like you said, they have different opportunities. Yes, but how many 17 years old we have in Dubai now? And how many have done what you did? So again, going to the conference, being proactive,
Dude,
working hard.
So many successful examples like Barack Obama, you have Pele, you have a lot of footballers actually, prominently speaking. And you go back into many, many decades ago where we don't have the level of globalization right now. We don't have the internet. And I know a lot of people in their their grandfathers, for example, they left a country when they were 14 years old and they left their parents and they jumped on a ship and went to America to build a life for themselves. So think about this, like 100 years ago, they were doing that. No cell phone, no internet, no nothing. And when you compare it to now, people have access to infinite information. They can get things done much more quickly. And, thanks to social media, you can put yourself out there a lot more easily too. So if you make this comparison, then again, it's not fair because people back 100 years ago, well, they did it.
Very much
so
harder.
What's stopping you?
Exactly. But man, you're an absolute legend.
You too, man. By the way, thank you so much for incredible hospitality. I drank probably the best coffee I've had in my life.
Woohoo.
This studio is incredible. You are incredible. And I hope this reaches to as many people out there so that, we can spread the word, spread the message, and be an advocate for Bitcoin.
Indeed, many more to come. And guys, Crypto Kid in the comment down below, all the links. If you don't follow him, please do so because you will miss otherwise.
Thank you.
And man, I think I will see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And see you in the next one.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.